Welcome to Influencing Magic, a Daps Magic podcast exploring how members of the Disney and creative communities became influential in their different disciplines.
We are interviewing and sharing experiences of an ever-growing influencing market, drawing from Daps Magic's nearly 20-year history within the Disney community. Come with us as we share what it takes to be a successful Disney influencer, both professionally and personally,
while also seeking to influence kindness along the way. I'm Mr. Daps.
I'm Annie.
And we're excited that you're here as we go on this adventure for Influencing Magic, episode number 3.
3. I saw the panic on your face.
That's a little bit true. Normally, this is the point where we would talk about what's new in our lives. What do you got new going on, Annie?
Let's see. This is still very new.
This is going to be our answer for the next 6 months.
Yeah, seriously. No, but it's been a really fun time kind of brainstorming and getting all of this prepped. I kind of went full producer mode on Mr. Daps, and I don't think he realized exactly what he was jumping into when he was like, hey, what do you think about a podcast? And I was like, yes, done. Here's 5 Google documents on scripts, show orders, and blah, 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 blah. So that has been kind of a cool side project for me, and you guys get to have the benefits of that. So
Yeah, it's fun. And basically the same answer for me for what's new that's going on. And it'll be interesting to see how this evolves, and we'll be like, oh, actually we have this new thing that we've added. But that will come at some point, and it'll be an exciting thing to do. And spring is on the way. I feel like, what is it, Carousel of Progress?
Yeah.
Like we're still in the first room, and we haven't pivoted to the second room
We'll
yet.
get there.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
We'll get there.
All right. Should we get into the show?
Sure.
All right. This week is going to be fun because we get to interview and hear from Annie, her entire life story. No, we're not going to actually do that to you. But you are a very successful professional artist.
I try.
And but you're doing it. So that's half the game. And
I have fooled everybody.
Isn't that also half the game? You still let me show up.
Why did they let me have access to this?
We're in front of a camera with microphones. Who let us do this? It was me. Anyway.
Yeah.
Just as you asked me last time.
Yes.
What is the Annie origin story?
I love the Annie origin story.
I like the sound of that better.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I absolutely love talking to people about origin stories because nobody has the same one. And if you listened in on the episode 2 where we talked about Mr. Daps' origin story, he kind of took us from the beginning of Daps Magic in the early days and then to the present. So I'm going to kind of follow along and do that same thing, starting with.
Tell us about Annie as a child.
I mean, I could.
I realized I didn't do that last time, which is fine. But
I mean, I can share a little insight
wherever you want. Start your origin story.
Well, I'll give you this little tidbit. When I was growing up, it was very obvious that I was artistically inclined. I cannot do math. I am no good at sciences. My marine biology degree was cut severely short when I realized how much science and math is involved with that.
You just wanted to play with the whales and the fish.
Basically,
and the
Lisa Frank, I blame for wanting to be a marine biologist.
Okay.
But I mean, I would get in trouble for drawing on my homework instead of actually doing the work. So that is kind of my claim to fame. If you look back on report cards and work from Annie's early elementary career, it's mostly doodles on pages of things that probably I shouldn't have been doodling on. But so that's what I mean when I say it was very evident that I should be an artist, because that's what I tend to do.
Okay.
Yeah. If I'm on a phone call, which is very rare these days, actual phone calls.
What's a phone call?
Usually I have something that I'm doodling on. So it just, that's how it is.
Were you that way on Zoom too?
You mean when we had our podcasts?
No. I mean, like if you're on a Zoom, like, are you also kind of like, Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I try to keep my phone away because that's not
dangerous.
Good. But
okay.
Yeah. Usually I'll have a sketch pad or whatever next to me. But as far as actually my professional endeavors and beginnings, I mean, I pretty much did the what you're supposed to do. You know, when you're in college or you're in high school and they're like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do everything. Can I do everything? So I went to a junior college, and this is where the road split.
Uh-oh.
Okay. I was either going to do arts or theater.
This does not surprise me.
So you can imagine, I mean, spoiler alert, I chose the arts, but my path would have been completely different if I had chose the other. Not to say it would have gone this way eventually, but it's so funny how things work out that way. Like one little tiny decision of, well, I have more credits in this art.
Okay.
If I do this, I'm going to have to do all of this other stuff.
Fair.
This probably sounds more secure of going into the art degree. So I chose art, and I transferred to Long Beach State, and I got a BFA in illustration. And it was mostly I wanted to go into children's books.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. Is like, for those of us that don't know what illustration is.
Yes.
What is illustration? Besides, because children's books is what I immediately think of.
Yes.
But it's also way more than that.
It is. So a BFA, if you don't know what that is either, it's a Bachelor's of Fine Arts. So it's kind of like the BA, but it's more specialized. So I did have to take more schooling to go into that specialized illustration degree. And illustration is a little bit different than, say, like fine arts, which is very realistic. That's where you're going to see a lot of like the big Renaissance paintings. And it's not modern art where it's up for your interpretation. It's storytelling. And so it kind of goes along the same storytelling of theater arts where you're acting it out, but instead you're drawing the picture. So it's your job to take a story and put it down visually in any form that could be. So, I mean, you could do that realistically in fine art. But for me, the children's books kind of has my home as far as the style goes. So then I graduated in 2008, and then I didn't do anything with it. I did nothing. I did absolutely nothing with it. I was just like, okay, well, now what? I live in Orange County, and I need to have a job that pays for my rent. So I got a job that barely paid for my rent, and that kind of consumed me. One of the things that I've really learned about myself, too, is that if I'm unhappy in what I'm doing, my creativity goes out the window.
I think that's a good life lesson, honestly.
Yeah.
I think that goes for all types of creativity. Yeah, I think that's totally true.
It's going to come back around too, so remember that, of like my own things. I like, if I was going to say one of the lowest parts of my life, not because anything necessarily bad happened, but because I was so unhappy, I just had no desire to do anything. So I moved back in with my parents, as one does when they're broke, and the student loans start to kick in, which is terrible. So I moved back in with my parents, and that actually, I moved up in to the Central California area in about 2009. And that, my friends, is I think where I started following Daps.
Probably.
Because I can't remember exactly what time. I didn't join Daps, but I think that's when I started watching Geeks Corner. And I started following you guys online because I was removed from the Disney parks. And the Disney parks were my happy place for obvious reasons. So to get my fix, my Disney fix, I was looking for bloggers, YouTubers, everybody who was dealing with all of the new YouTube videos. Blogger was really big at the time. I started my own blog, I think. It was an art blog, but I still think I talked about Disney stuff at that time.
Okay.
But that's where I started connecting with you guys. Mm-hmm. And I remember we were talking about something online, and I mentioned that I was going to be down in the park. And you were like, oh, well, we're going to be down there too. You should come meet up with us. And I was like, what? Mr. Daps wants to meet up with me? What? And so I was a little bit, I wouldn't say like starstruck, but I was, you're like straight. But I was very taken aback that somebody that I admired online, I think you and Johnny were both there that night when we met up.
That sounds right.
And we watched Fantasmic or something like that. But it was just super fun to get to connect with other people that loved Disney as much as I did. And then I think a couple years after that was when I started writing articles, I think, for you. Mm-hmm. But I still was not doing art. So this was...
That's true. You're being a pirate.
I was being a pirate. Like I said, remember how I said that I wanted to do everything? So you kind of talked in your on the last episode about having, how did you put it? The path to the goal isn't always straight.
Yeah.
So to put it in an illustration, do you guys remember the Family Circus comics?
Yes.
So there was this one comic that I actually clipped out of the newspaper, and it was, I think Tommy was in it, and the playground was over here. And his path to get the mail, which was like in front of the house.
Oh, I like this.
Went across the street, up the slide, down the slide, around the playground. And so it was like the dotted like ant line or whatever, all the way around, back to the house, but in the backyard, blah, 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 and then to the mailbox. And then back around, down the slide, blah, 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 and then finally back in the house.
That's smart.
So that's my roadmap for you. Don't do what I did. It would probably be a lot easier if you just like had that goal in mind. Don't be like me and do everything. That's my big advice for this episode is don't be like Annie. Don't do everything. Or do. That's fine.
Like, I don't know that that's a bad thing though, because those other things you did brought life experiences that you can use elsewhere in your life, whether it's creating things or whatever. And like, I did everything too. And I, at the end of the day, I'm like, I feel like that's part of why we have so many crazy ideas is because we've had so many crazy experiences too.
It's true.
And so I don't know that that's best necessarily like, I'm like, maybe you should do like Annie.
I mean, it's a choose your own adventure at this point.
Yes.
So you can choose to follow or not follow. Bring in some of Mr. Daps, bring in some of Katie, bring in some of whoever you want to follow. We are here to bring you your choices of influence, and you decide which you would like to be influenced by. So, and I think...
Were you still, like, during this time, drawing for fun on the side, or was it just, like, I'm not doing anything art?
I was, like, doodling.
Okay. So something. Like, it wasn't completely done.
I had sketchbooks, but I wasn't doing anything with them. Like I made gift tags for like my family for Christmas, but it wasn't anything, crazy.
Okay.
And then I realized probably in, let's see, I want to say around like 2011, 2012, like, hey, I have this degree. Why am I not doing this? This doesn't make any sense. So I kind of had I had to reestablish my passion for storytelling. I knew that when I had joined the local community theater, and so I was doing shows. Yep. Remember how I chose not to do that? I did it again, and it's fine. It's fine. It was still a creative outlet, so I guess I was getting fed that way. But it wasn't. Looking back, I probably should have done this, but again, it's the thing where you don't regret. I don't regret any of that time because I met some of the most amazing people doing community theater. And I think if you ever have a chance to try something new that's out of your norm, do it. 100% do it. And then how I kind of got back into it, I started painting shoes.
Oh, that's right.
Do you remember those?
I'd forgotten about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to.
Those were cool.
I think I sold. I know Caitlyn got some. Yep. Some of my other friends got some. I want to say I painted about 24 different pairs of shoes.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
I mean, I did everything from just like simple characters to, and these were mostly like comic characters, Disney characters, whatever. People would pay me for the commission. I didn't charge per character because I knew that that's all licensed things. I didn't do anything like that, but it was really fun, and it really like reestablished my love for painting specifically. And it worked a lot on my character work because I was getting those characters pretty spot on. I looked back at those and I was like, wow, I did
on a shoe.
I did a good job.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, and Caitlyn has a couple pairs of them.
Yeah,
actually.
I remember
She
her getting
wears.
a few along the way.
And then after that, let's see. Okay, so while I was doing the shoes, I was thinking about going back to grad school, thinking like, hey, if I go back to school, maybe I'll do this actually. Because when I went to school the first time, it worked so well. And I'm not knocking art school. It's just that you have to do something with it in order for it to be effective.
Yeah.
And I was talking to professors. I was looking at different colleges and whatnot. And I didn't have that strong of a portfolio. I just had the shoes.
That's right. I remember this.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I had some things from school, but they weren't, looking back, I'm like, no, get those out of here. Those are terrible. Because, yeah, you're always your worst critic, right? So I was kind of just trying to figure out, I was like, well, I really liked children's books. I started taking some online classes for like composition and how to set a scene, bring characters in, character design, but it was just really random. It wasn't like a full-time anything. And then I had a friend from high school. So, little side story. I actually worked for Disney before I worked for Disney this last time. And I worked in California Adventure. I'm not going to tell you what year I worked in California Adventure because I will severely date myself. But I'm just going to say that I worked in Greetings Over California. So it was not anytime recent. I was very young, fresh out of high school, and I didn't last very long. It just didn't work into my schedule very well. Nothing on Disney. I was not prepared. And the position that I was hired into didn't give me what I needed out of a job. So I went and got another job elsewhere. I worked at the beach. I worked at Huntington State Beach and Bolsa Chica State Beach, and I asked people for parking money.
Oh, there you go.
So, but you know what? It paid better than like a corporate job.
Yeah.
At the time.
Yeah.
So.
But that's going back to that. Sometimes you have to do the thing over here to get to where you need to go over here.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually worked there for about 8 years. It was seasonal, so I could choose months that I didn't want to work.
Cool.
Which was great. So
That's
I
very
didn't
cool.
have to worry about working any holidays.
Wow.
I got tan every summer. My car smelled like bonfire for years at a time.
Oh, I'm sure.
So
Wow.
it was great. Okay, so flash forward again to I've been doing these shoes. My friend that I got a job with at Disney way back when Little Annie applied is now in casting. And she gives me a call. Again, we're talking about phone calls. And she was like, hey, question for you. And I was like, go. She said, I know you want to work for Disney again. Would you be interested in being a sketch artist in one of the galleries? And I was like, yes, done. Where do I sign up? Who do I need to call? She said, okay, well, here's the thing. They are not accepting outside applications because this is like an internal application. So I was like, oh, and she goes, but here's the thing. Because you would be a rehire, you qualify to go the interview process because I had already been part of the company and I had a good rapport when I left. I would be eligible to do this. So they worked it out. They pulled my resume. I interviewed, and spoiler alert, I got the job. And I got it. That was in 2015.
I was like, I remember this, but yes.
Mm-hmm, yeah. And I had still been doing shoes, and I think I was working more on illustration stuff at the time. Nothing had really come out of it, but I was doing stuff. But then again, the portfolio that I showed them was all shoes, and they were like, oh, okay.
I remember you showing me that portfolio.
Yeah. And it was really interesting, though, because when I was in the interview, it was kind of like a good cop, bad cop. I had two managers.
Interesting.
Where one was the very, straightforward, straight-laced. And he's a great guy. I'm not saying anything bad about them. He kept us on track. And then I had another manager who's great. He actually got me some really cool gigs outside too, who was like just very much like me, all over the place. And the manager one had to be like, okay, let's come back and stay on task.
But that's such a good dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love when those kinds of things happen because I feel like you get better things out of both.
Yes.
And yeah, that's another side thing.
Yeah. No, it was great. I had so much fun. And how often can you say that you had a lot of fun in an interview? I don't think that happens very often. Usually there's nerves, there's...
Generally, the jobs I've taken have been the ones I've had fun in.
Really?
Yeah.
But that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a good sign.
Yeah.
So the cool thing about it is because I had done those shoes and I had obvious painting experience. I mean, I did get hired as a sketch artist, but they also were considering me for ink and paint at the time, which I would have come in brand new had the other person that had already interviewed, which he was up for that. Had he said no, I would have gone into that, which is insane because I painted shoes, you guys.
But I'm also glad that you did end up doing sketch for a while because I have my Scrooge McDuck from like your last week doing that or whatever. And yeah. That was
a crazy week.
I think it's gonna end up on the wall at some point.
We should do it.
Yeah, we'll put it up.
So again, I mean, it's something that I didn't think was that big of a deal. I was just doing what I love to do. And that helped me get hired because they could not only see that I could do character work, they could see that I did it often. I had previous experience at the park, which gave me an in on it. And they could see that I had fine art skills, which then eventually, another spoiler.
Can I add one more thing that I think they saw?
What?
This is just because I was kind of following you along a little bit on this. I think they also saw that you were very easy to work with and you were very personable with not only your coworkers, but the people above you. And
that's true.
You didn't really have anybody reporting to you.
Yeah. But
you treated everybody very kindly and you were like, you model everything we hope to model with this podcast. Like you were very, like I can remember watching, like you'd be like, oh, I saw so-and-so today and blah, blah, blah. And like, it didn't matter where they worked, like anywhere in the company, you were always very personable and kind and professional. But I think you should add that into your origin story.
My origin story that I'm professional?
Yeah.
Personable and professional?
Yeah.
That's good. Personal.
If I had another P word that standed for kind, it would be, then you'd have the 3 Ps. I don't know.
Thanks.
But yeah. Anyway, keep going. Sorry.
That's okay.
So you're working, you're now a sketch artist.
Yes.
There's an opportunity coming up.
Really fast. I forget. This is how my brain works, you guys. It just goes everywhere.
So you listen to me last time.
Remember how I said that I just went everywhere? I did anything and everything. I want to do everything.
Yep.
I'm going to kind of put in, maybe I should wait till we talk about like lessons learned.
All right, let's do that.
Okay. I'm just going to put a little asterisk right here.
And hopefully one of us remembers.
For lessons learned.
Lessons learned.
Of like a big lesson that ties into all of this. Okay. So going back to sketch artists, I was there for a year and a half. Amazing opportunities. We did sketches for Disneyland executives. I got to talk to Chris, the vice president of Disneyland. I met her and got to talk to her about my work and what we did. And then when the electrical parade came back for its 45th?
Must have been 40. Was it 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
45th. I got to design 13 sketches for the electrical parade, which are still available on Disneyana and the other sketch photos. If you would like to get some of those, shameless plug, those are still available, which like is a huge honor to know that I got to contribute artwork for a Disney owned something. I mean, it's not my artwork. I don't get to keep it, but to know that I got to contribute to that of keeping art and the arts in Disneyland, a place that I love. That's just so cool. And then after the sketch program, and which happened actually pretty close to the electrical parade, I got the news that I was being considered once again to move into ink and paint, which is in the same building, same rooms, same artists. I just like moved a chair over. So I basically would have like sat where Mr. Daps is right now. But I got to work with animation cells. So if you guys are not familiar with ink and paint, it is basically the presentation of an ink and paint cell, which was used in early animation up until Little Mermaid. I think Little Mermaid was the very last cells in production that were used on screen. And it's that same inking on the front of a piece of plastic, painting on the back side of the plastic, putting that on a background, taking a photo of it, and then that becomes one frame of film, and there are 24 of those per second when you're watching a Disney animated feature. So imagine, and I can get into more. Maybe one day we can talk about all of that. But I don't know if this is the right platform to talk about animation cells. It's not really influence anything. But anyway,
but it does say what goes into the process.
If you want to learn more about it, you can check out the Women of Ink and Paint book by Mindy Johnson, which is incredible. It's about 50 pounds.
It's massive.
It's massive. But so I got into that. It was amazing. And I got to paint animation cells. I got to talk about animation cells to Drew Carey.
That's very cool.
No
big deal. He was a big Disney fan.
Yeah, I was sitting there painting, and this girl walked up and she was asking me questions, and I was like, "Oh yeah, this is what we're doing, blah blah blah." And all of a sudden, this guy walks over, and no joke, he looked like the guy from Jurassic Park, John
Hammond. Okay.
Because he was wearing like a linen suit with a big brimmed hat, and I was like, "Oh, this guy's like Jurassic Park." Oh, that's
pretty cool.
Definitely not Jurassic Park. That is Drew Carey. So I got to talk to him.
Nice.
And then as soon as he left, I was like, "This, don't freak out, don't freak out, don't freak out." And I went in the back. I opened the door, and all the artists were back there, and they were like, "Oh my gosh!"
That's funny.
So we all fangirled, for lack of a better phrase. So cool stuff like that happened, and then I think right before I left Ink and Paint at Disneyland, I was getting ready to do a full animation cell that was like mine from the very beginning, concepts, sketches, to painting the full background, designing the characters. Like, it was one of the coolest projects I have ever worked on. It was featuring the Dalmatians and like all the dogs of Disney, and it was so good. It was so good. Then we all know what happened in March 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So that is another story for another time. But during that, it was, you hit rock bottom at certain points in your life. And that was definitely one of the times where I just felt like, for lack of a better way of saying it, like the magic carpet just got ripped out from underneath of me. And it was no fault of anybody. It was literally the world and the environment that we were in at the time.
Yeah.
It happened to so many people, and so many people had it worse than I did, and I don't ever want to say like mine is more important or whatever, but it was really hard. And it took me, I want to say, a good 2 weeks to really kind of gather myself and say, like, okay, this is the reality. What are we going to do from here? And I had to pull myself up out of bed. It was hard. It was really hard. I didn't want to do that, but I was like, "Annie, you can't just shut down." And I think that was a really big lesson in that too. You can't just cease to do what you're doing. You owe it to yourself to keep going and keep pursuing the things that you are passionate about. So I took part of my savings and I enrolled in some virtual conferences for children's book illustration.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, obviously this isn't working. That's a very specific skill set. I don't know where else I can get hired for ink and paint. Like, that's a cool thing. I'm so glad that I was able to experience that. But does this opportunity come twice in a lifetime?
Right.
Probably not. So I pivoted and I went into full illustration because I was like, I got this degree. And granted, you guys, this was in 2020. Like, I graduated college in 2008. This is a good, 12 years later? That's insane.
No problem.
That's insane. It's fine. I'm a late bloomer. 12 years. So I was like, okay, I don't have a portfolio. And if I did, it was ink and paint. That's not going to get me hired anywhere. Nobody's making 2D animated movies, especially right now. What is it that people are doing? They're reading. The kids are at home, blah, blah, blah. Let's do this. Enrolled in the conferences, put my portfolio out there. And within, I think I redid my portfolio in 3 months. I had at least 6 or 7 solid pieces in my children's illustration portfolio. Paid for a portfolio review at the conference. And I got... I want to say 4 or 5 emails from agents, because the big thing in children's illustration, if you don't know, it's really important to have an agent when you're starting out. They will handle all of the legal stuff for you. They will handle all of everything. It's very difficult. You can do it on your own, but it's very difficult. So that was my goal. I got to redo my portfolio. I got to find myself an agent. Did the conference, and these agents got back to me, and I just didn't feel like they fit. Like I was a good fit for them.
Fair.
Not that they were bad, but I was just like, you know what? I think they're looking for something different than me, and that's okay. It's okay to say no to opportunities if you don't think that that's what is going to work for you or them. Because at the end of the day, you want everybody to succeed. And it's going to be more frustration on both ends if you're a puzzle piece that doesn't fit into the hole that they're trying to fill. And that's another really big thing of like, don't force yourself to fit something because it's not going to work. And so this is kind of hearkening to the big thing that I want to talk about later. My sister, you know, I was kind of like, well, they didn't work. You know, I'm kind of bummed, but that's okay. We're just going to keep going, take these lessons, get better, take whatever feedback they gave me, put them into the thing. I'm going to keep writing. At that time, I had written a couple children's books, which is they're still on the back burner. Nothing's happening with them yet. But
do they have penguins in them?
They do not.
Okay.
They do have
Just
cryptids.
asking.
There's a puppy and a cryptid.
Okay.
So
it's something.
And then let's see. Sorry, my brain is going so many different directions. About a month later, my sister sends me a message. She's like, hey, my friend who I worked with wherever, okay, saw this tweet online. Here's the screenshot of this random agent who just opened up 2 children's book queries.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll go check her out. So I went on Twitter, which I never go on Twitter. And I'm looking and I see that she's accepting, blah, blah, blah. And I look through her stuff and I'm like, actually, this could be a really good fit. And so I went to her inbox. She had a specific format. Always look to see what you have to do and follow instructions if you are contacting people, because that's important. That's a first impression must.
Yes.
Follow instructions. It's amazing how many people don't.
Yeah.
Follow instructions. Gold star on that one.
I will close a door so fast yeah.
So I uploaded all the stuff to her query, which is like a fancy word for saying I'm looking for this.
Yeah.
Or like, hey, you're looking for this. I'm going to upload this to this website or whatever. She contacts me back within a couple hours and is like, hey, you're awesome. Let's do this. Sends me a contract. And within 48 hours, I was agented.
Wow.
So, and I'm still working with her. We have gotten really close to like some really big projects. Publishing world is very like hit or miss. It didn't end up going through for either me or the author that I was partnered with, but it was a really cool experience. And through that, even though it didn't work, I made an impression on the publishing house that was trying to get this going. And you always want to put your best foot forward and just like, even though it might not work out, just keep doing it as hard as you can. And don't burn bridges. That's the big thing of just like, even if it doesn't work, you've made an impression. These people have seen you and they're going to think about you in the future if they have anything that matches. So that I think was last year. It was another big blow, but it wasn't devastating because I knew that positive could come out of it. And it really was a good experience, even though it was kind of a fail. Well, in terms of the definition, it didn't work, but it was amazing what I got out of it.
And having watched you go through this, in my head, I never considered it as a failure. Like, and that's just watching how you handled it. It was like, I didn't ever get the opinion of like, oh, this was a terrible thing. Like, see, you were talking about your excitement with it the entire time.
It was a 6-book deal. That would have been really amazing. Yes. It didn't work, but it's fine. It was a really good experience. Like I said, and I made a really good impression with the publishing house and the editor, so that's great. And then moving on to that, I don't remember how I saw It was on LinkedIn. I think one of my previous coworkers sent it to me magically.
Mm-hmm.
There was a call for drummel ink and paint artists at the Walt Disney Animation Studios. And I cried. And I was like, the guys at this point I was still unemployed. So I was the output of what I was doing. Oh, and in the meantime, I hit my Etsy shop really hard. I was
That's
like
true.
pumping out as much artwork as I possibly could.
And your Patreon.
And my Patreon, trying to do anything and everything that I could to bring in funds, because I had no idea where this next paycheck was going to go or going to come from. And so that was like, it was just anything and everything. Talking about trying to do everything at once. That's kind of what spurred on, you know, all of this of like trying to have, what was it that you said in your last interview about having multiple streams of income?
Oh, diversify.
Yeah. Trying to do that, because I had also heard that previously of like, don't have all of your income in one spot. So you got to make sure that you have multiple streams of income.
Yep.
And so I got this thing, and so this is the part that's like kind of hard to talk about, because I submitted my resume, and it was really cute. Like, I did a really cute resume. It was like I doodled on it. It like wasn't a regular resume. If you guys want to see it, I'll post it. But it's really cute. It's pink.
Of course it is. Not surprised.
And which Mary said that it impressed her, and she printed it out and put it up on her wall. And I was like, "You're welcome."
That's cool.
Make an impression, guys.
Yes.
Make a good impression.
Always make an impression.
Stand out.
Mm-hmm.
So I submitted my portfolio. Got the email that said that it was under review and that they would like to set up a Zoom interview. And then at that point, I realized that all of my coworkers from the Disneyland ink and paint department had also applied, and we were all in the running, and there was only one position available.
Yep.
And it hit me, because knowing like it's that feeling of self-doubt and thinking like, why would they choose me? All of these people that I have worked with and that I love and that are like my family, they've all been in this industry for decades longer than I have. Why did I not start sooner? Why did I not start in 2008 when I graduated? I could have been so much further than what I am. And I was discounting all of that hard work that I had been putting in since, I mean, I feel like I really started it in 2019. That's when my Patreon launched. And so I had 5 good years of work. And the other guys had decades. They had done books. They had done stuff for Disney. They had done character artwork. Eric had done popcorn buckets for the park. Heckin' Eric, he's so good.
Yep, he's very good.
And I just had this moment of like, I broke down. I'm being totally raw with you guys right now. I broke down. I went to my bed and I just sobbed, because I felt so unworthy of the opportunity. It was so important to me, and I just felt like I was at the bottom of the pack. Nobody's going to look at me. What am I going to do? Again, those feelings of like, I have a certain skill set. I don't have any other thing to do. This would be perfect. I love it. But like, I don't want to take it from them too. So, long story short, I went into the interview, and they asked, you know, like, do you have any other samples, blah, blah, blah. So, excuse me, after like probably a day of self-pity and wallowing through tear-stained pillows, and the poor Lotus, my dog, was just like, I don't know what's wrong with you, but I'm here for you, you know. I was like, okay, refocus, just like I did when everything shut down. Refocus. What can I do to be the best Annie that I can be? I'm not Eric. I'm going to call these guys out because they're amazing. I'm not Dave. I am not any of the other people that are going to go after this job. And if I try to be them, they don't need another Eric. We don't need another Dave. They already have a Dave and Eric. Why would they want somebody else? Like, they are already the perfect Eric, the perfect Dave that they could be.
Yeah.
I need to be the perfect Annie. And that's what makes me stand out from everybody else. So for the next 2 weeks, I mean, I did a whole reel on Instagram about this. I was like, you know what? We're going to have the same samples because we all work together on the same stuff. So I'm going to get my samples, but I'm going to do 2 new cells. So I went down to Michael's. I got the cheapest craft paint that I could find because I had no cell paint. Like, they don't make it anymore, you know? I was like, okay, what can I do? What illustrations can I do? I'll do a Disney one, and I'll do something that's like kind of my own character. So I did 2 different cells. One background was digital and one I painted myself. And I did 6 of each because I wanted to give myself, I wanted to be able to have some to choose from and pick the best that I could. I didn't just, you know, try to do one and hope for the best. Mm-hmm. I wanted to set myself up for success. So I had them all over the table, all over my desk at home. I had fans going. The dog was banished from the rooms that the cells were in because I didn't want dog hair in the paint, and she sheds like crazy. So at the end of the day, I had all my samples. I had my pink resume, and I had these 2 brand new cells that I like. Harking back to, I don't know if that's the right word, going back to my school days where I learned how to do like present an illustration. I used like black framing tape. I got this really nice sheet of black paper, did the presentation all nice. I had photo corners holding the cells in place. Like, it was good.
It was good.
So I wanted to present myself the best Annie that I could be. Yeah. And that was something that I knew how to do. So I met them there. I walked through. Okay, this is what blows my mind, okay? I walked through the gates of the Walt Disney Studio, where you go through and it says Walt Disney Studios. Me, Annie, walked in with an art portfolio to go have it viewed for a job. Like, who gets to do that? Whose life did I steal? Seriously, talk about feeling like unworthy. Like, what is happening right now? This isn't my life. This is, you know, somebody else. That's something that's like a core memory I'm always going to remember, is walking underneath that arch and being like, I have my artwork in my hand and they want to see me. I have a real shot at this. You got this. You got this. You go in and you give them the best Annie you can do. So I went in, and then I heard back. And I thought it went great. Like, from what I heard, they were impressed. And so I went back home, and then I found out that I had a second interview. And I had to go all the way back up to Burbank, which is like no traffic, at least an hour. So I went back up there. And in the meantime, I got a phone call. These phone calls from my beloved manager at the Disney parks that said, hey, guess what? We're back. We're back. Ink and Paint is not coming back, but we want to bring you back in as a sketch artist. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes. But I'm also doing this. And he knew that like we were all up for this.
Yeah.
And so, and I had been keeping in contact with them for the last few months anyway. So we were all, you know, kind of like, okay, well, I'm going to say yes, because once you've been offered the job at Disney, you only have so much time to say yes or no, or you get booted out of the system.
Yep.
So I told him I'm saying yes because I need to lock in my thing. And he was like, no problem. Just let us know, you know,
if
either way.
Everything works out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when I went to my second interview, I told him, I was like, hey, just so you know, like, this is a situation. I am so thankful for this opportunity. And I absolutely, like, yes, if it is offered to me. But I do need to let you know that, like, this is also open up. So if you could let me know as soon as possible, that would be so appreciated. And so we drove back, and I think we got to Long Beach, and I was with Alicia, my old roommate, and we stopped at this place, and it was really good. It was really good food, and I ordered this bowl of potatoes, and it was like Mediterranean potatoes, and I was like, these are the best potatoes I've ever had. And then my phone buzzed, and it said, you don't have to wait any longer. Congratulations, you have the job. And again, I burst into tears. into my potatoes. And I was like,
Well,
I'm
that's still
really
good.
sad because these were really good potatoes. But that's how I found out. And I cried into, I always laugh. I'm like, I cried into my potatoes. And I have a picture of my potatoes on my phone
I'm
from
so
that
glad.
day. And so it was just really great. And the experiences that I have had so far within that department is just incredible. And knowing that I am part of not only Disneyland's legacy of the arts, but now part of the actual animation studio, where it all started, it just blows my mind.
And everybody around you too.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm like, whose life am I leading? Like, how did they know? Oh, and another thing, they ended up doing 2 positions.
Right. That's right.
So I'm actually there with Dave. So somehow, some way, they hired Dave first, and they were like, guess what? Another position opened up, and they want you. And I was like,
Jackpot.
what is happening? So then that was the other thing too, is I was feeling really sad, knowing that the rest of my team was going to be back at Disneyland, and I was going to be so
there.
far away.
Yeah.
And then I found out that Dave was there, and it was like a homecoming. And one of my other coworkers is up there, is also from Disneyland. I didn't work with him at the park, but he's also there. So it's like Disneyland is kind of taking over.
And it's funny because that whole group is really why I have an appreciation for art today, is because they all used to be watch artists too.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of funny how our circles have.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
And so like they all taught me how composition. And
When do you
and
think
artwork.
you started following along with them, I guess, on their...
2000 probably 4 also.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
So you knew them a decade before I did, basically. That's crazy.
It's amazing people. So you're there today, completely
That was a
not
really
where you
long
would have
story,
ever
sorry.
expected to be, I think, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
What are the life lessons that you picked up along the way?
So, okay, this is what I was kind of alluding to in the other thing. So one of the biggest life lessons is it doesn't matter. Well, first of all, whatever your plan is, throw it out the window, because, especially in my case, because plans are great as a guideline, but they rarely ever go how you actually plan them out. And for somebody who is so just everywhere, it's crazy how all of those everywheres that I did put me here. So I talk about how, it was hard for me to focus on illustration. So in between I did that, in between me going to school and then Disney in 2015, I was working at I worked at an animal hospital. That was like right out of high school. I worked at the park. Okay. I worked as they're called park aides. I don't know if they're still called that, but at Bolsa Chica in Huntington. I then moved and I worked for an insurance agency for like health insurance, and I actually got licensed as a health insurance broker for like a hot second.
Okay.
And then I worked as a teacher. I taught visual and performing arts and drama. And I was creating art. So I guess I was still doing art-related stuff because I was doing theater. And then I was creating lesson plans for the other faculty members to do their own art lessons for the kids. And then I actually took the CBEST and got my substitute teaching license.
Nice.
And that was in Palm Springs, because I had moved back. My parents moved out from underneath me, and so I
That's right. I forgot about that.
Go back and follow them. But then when I just hit the mic. Then when I interviewed for Disneyland, all of those things that I had experience with leading up to that played into me being able to do the job at Disneyland. So working with kids,
good thing,
is good, and it's a teaching moment. So one of the questions that they actually asked me was, are you able to draw with distractions?
Good.
Or
point.
are you able to teach something with multiple distractions around? And I said, well, you just described a 3rd grade classroom. So yes, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And then, being good in front of an audience, all of the things with teaching, and then my theater experience played into that.
Yep.
You have to be on stage all the time. So in a sense, I was kind of like my own character of myself.
Sure.
Because no matter what was going on behind the scenes, I had to make sure that I was presenting myself well. All of my schooling, all of the shoes, everything played into me getting that job and then moving forward to where I am today. And the other half of that, with those experiences also comes a variety of people. And every time you work with a new team, you form bonds with them, but also there's always going to be people that just you don't get along with. Be kind, first of all, be kind to everybody, but never burn bridges. I said that before, because when you think about it, the person who not got me the job, but like led me to the job at Disney was somebody from high school.
Yeah.
And she's one of my greatest friends. We like hardly talk anymore, but she's still there. If I needed anything, I could totally send her a text. I'll send her a text every once in a while and be like, hey, thinking about you. I love you. I love your kids. Like, you're great. Thanks for being in my life. I was in her wedding. So like, what the heck, man?
Yeah, why not?
Like she basically started my Disney career. And then, we talk about, I had a thing for this. What was I saying? My brain is going
your
crazy.
Tangent thing. Yes.
Yeah. I think that was it. Just like the biggest lessons of don't burn bridges, because you never know where that connection is going to come from. And I talked about my sister sending me a screenshot from one of her friends who now is my agent. But if she hadn't known what I was doing, or if I had done something online that was not great, like why would she think of me for something like that? I don't even know this person. But everywhere that you put yourself out, though, your presence is constantly, I don't want to say judged, but you want to put the best side of yourself out.
Be proactive about it.
Be proactive, yeah. Not everybody needs to know everything that's bad, but we talk about being a good influence, and there's a way to influence kindness and goodness. And if I hadn't been doing that, I don't think these opportunities would have come as easily as I did. Who knows if they would have happened, if I would have seen a sketch artist position later. Yeah. But I mean, because of that, I have had all these experiences. I'm working at the studios. I did a presentation at D23.
Yep.
If I wasn't comfortable speaking in front of an audience, or had enough presence of mind to like look like I'm okay in front of lights and like people staring at me,
distracting environment.
Yeah, and
it was a
teaching moment too. Yeah. You got people walking around. Yeah. It's not a closed-in classroom where everybody was like super quiet. Mm-hmm. But if I hadn't had those experiences before, I wouldn't have been as comfortable doing it going forward.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the coolest things about life, is how things just come around. And now here you and I are.
Yeah.
You've been connected with everybody that I work with.
Yeah.
Now we're friends, and we're doing this podcast about being a good influence and connecting with people. So.
Well said.
Giant circle.
I feel like you kind of answered the next question about advice also, which was really come back to it. Don't burn bridges. Mm-hmm. Put your best foot forward.
Yeah.
And be proactive about it. I heard in your story too. Like you're always kind of, every time you were down, you decided, hey, I'm not going to keep being down. I'm going to go and do something about this. And I think that's good advice as well. But I think we're also running out of time, huh?
Are we?
Probably.
Am I talking too
long? No. I think we're just getting close.
Okay.
What are some final thoughts for someone who wants to become, I'm going to just put it into the blanket of illustrator. Sure. What would you say are like 3 easy to remember things that you should do today to start on that trajectory to illustrator?
Okay. I think the first one goes to any kind of endeavor that you would like. The first one is, everybody has a different origin story. Mm-hmm. So the things that I have just talked about are not going to be the same for you. You are still writing your story. So you can take influence from other people that you hear about, talk to, gather influence from, but just remember that it's going to be tailored to your own life experiences. And just because something worked for someone doesn't mean it's necessarily going to work for you. But on the hindsight of that, maybe the experiences that you are going to have will help somebody else in the future. So just remember that, like, even if you're doing everything that I heard I was supposed to do this, heard I was supposed to do that, and then this and this and this, and then this is supposed to happen, it doesn't work like that. So just remember to just take a deep breath, think about being the best you that you can be, because that's going to give you the best origin story.
Okay, so be the best you that you
Mm-hmm.
can be. Are there two others or no? Or do you think that
Um,
encapsulates it all?
I think it does, but I mean, just keep doing you. And I think the second biggest thing is just to keep at it.
Okay.
Some people get frustrated, and it's not working. It's not working now. You have to keep going. There's so many times where I could have just said like, this isn't working. I'm not going to do this anymore.
Right.
And I think you alluded to that in
Mhm.
yours too.
Totally.
But having the perseverance to have an end goal doesn't mean the plan is there, but to having the end goal, if you keep working on it, it's going to get closer. Even if you make the tiniest step, the tiniest little baby step, even if you just shuffle a rock, that rock is out of the way.
Yep.
So, and this is where the line, it's a rock. But yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. If that's something that you want to do, get as much information as possible and just keep doing you.
Cool. Very good advice.
Thanks.
All right. Well, if you're enjoying this and you want to engage with us further, you can find us on social media. We all have Instagram. I have Twitter. You don't like Twitter, but that's okay.
I don't get Twitter.
I enjoy it, but that is totally fine. But you can find us. You can find Roger, who helps us, and you can find Caitlyn, who also helps with our social media. All of that stuff's in the show notes. You can also, if you want to become part of the community, I guess you could say, that actually helps us decide things and gets to hear things early and gets kind of the insider knowledge, I guess. Join our Patreon. And we have, so it's surprising how many things go through the Patreon that we're like, hey, what do you think about this? Like, even this last week, I was asking Patreon what they thought about another project on Daps. And so join us there. You can come in at $1. You can come in at $100. Doesn't matter. But you can join the conversation there. And that's always a lot of fun as well. Is there anything else I'm supposed to say at the end?
Not really. We are going to be having, if you're listening to the audio version,
Yes.
we do have a video section. Not section. We have a video option.
You can see us.
On YouTube, if you head to Daps Magic YouTube. Is there a specific? It's just Daps Magic, right?
YouTube.com/Daps Magic.
Okay. So if you head there should be a podcast section, and we're going to have all the videos on that side. If you want to continue this conversation in the comments, that would also be appreciated.
Totally.
And if you guys want to leave us a review on, where is this podcast going to be?
Spotify, Apple Pod, anywhere that.
Okay. If you guys can.
Anywhere. Anchor.
I think it works the best if you do it on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah.
If you can give us a review, or I don't know how you rate it or like or whatever, but any kind of engagement that you can give us on this podcast really helps Apple know that we are up and coming and that we're good to listen to. That too.
All the above. But I think that's everything for this week, right?
I think so too.
So make it a great week, everybody, and be kind.